Afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sam Lloyd. I'm the Director of Ops for Wellness and Associate Chief Nurse within the Trust. So I suppose just on the back of Wellness Week and the talk with Adrian Croxall, we've had over 200 people actually view that, and we're there on the day. So we had such positive feedback regarding that particular session. We thought we'd introduce this WeTalk session, where we get individuals from around wellness and the other parts of the specialist care group to come and talk about the work they're doing, and to, I suppose, to share the good work, and I suppose prompt some ideas and thinking in other parts of the services, but also dispel some of those myths regarding those services and misunderstanding about the different services we have. So I'm pleased to introduce Laura and Corinne today, who are going to give a bit of a talk regarding forensic services. So if that's okay with Laura and Corinne, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. So while Laura's just getting the slides up to show you all, so we were asked to do this, and what we're going to do is give a little overview of what forensic services are in general, and then we're going to talk a little bit about MPFT forensic services, and then towards the end of the talk we're going to tell you what we do, where we work, and why we work in forensics, what we love about it.
Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about the types of patients that we care for within our services. So we do look after male patients within our forensic wards with a real variety of mental health problems. A lot of our patients actually come from the prison population or the criminal justice system, but not always. We do take patients from a variety of other different settings. That could be sort of general adult acute wards or adult PICU wards. We do tend to look after a lot of patients who would be deemed sort of quite high risk, and they may have, you know, if they haven't sort of committed an offence as such that's led them into our services, it might be that they're referred because they've been really difficult to manage in sort of any other settings. So they've been referred to us to just sort of support with some of those behaviours. We do take a lot of patients in our medium secure services that may have stepped down from a higher security. Equally, we sometimes take patients that need to step back up, so they may come to us from low secure. And we also work with patients that may be already in the community and they've actually been recalled to our services.
Okay, so I thought I'd just talk a little bit generally about what secure hospitals actually are, because I'm not sure whether everyone is aware of what security is, I guess. So in general, there are three sort of domains of security. So when we're talking about secure hospitals, we're talking about physical security. So that means the structure of the place, the building, the airlock, the fences that go around the building and the garden, and the way that we manage doors and keys and fobs and things like that. We also then have procedural security, so that's about the rules and the practices and the way that we do things within the service. And then we also have relational security, which is very interesting actually. It's the way that we know each other. So it's the way that we know the patients and the other members of staff around us, and the understanding that we have around that and what those interactions mean, and how we can sort of get the best out of each other really. So there are different levels of security. So in MPFT, we have low secure units and medium secure units, which we will go through in a minute. So the levels of security are set by NHSE within service specifications, and it's really to do with people's risk of harm to others, or risk of absconding or leaving services before the right time really. So for low secure units, people are demonstrating some kind of disturbed behaviour and they need a provision of security in order to help them to recover. Within medium secure units, again, the person is demonstrating some kind of disturbed behaviour in the context of a serious mental disorder, and they might present a serious risk to other people. So the people that we look after usually have chronic complex mental health disorders, and that's linked to their offending behaviour or their sort of harmful or risk behaviours really. And usually, I would say the majority of our patients have experienced some kind of trauma. at some point in their life. So I also wanted to just talk a little bit about levels of high security. So we in MPFT, we don't have a high secure unit. There are different and specific regulations around high secure and only specific trusts. There are currently 3 trusts within England and Wales who are approved by the Secretary of State to provide a high secure psychiatric service. And the 3 hospitals in England and Wales are Rampton, Broadmoor and Ashworth, which you might have heard of before. And so the levels of security in a high secure hospital are sort of similar to a Category B prison. So Rampton has quite specific services. So they've got the only service in the country, high secure service for people who are deaf. The only high secure service for people with learning disabilities, men with learning disabilities, I should say. And I think Rampton also have the only women's high secure service in the country as well. So Broadmoor and Ashworth both look after men. They have personality disorder units as well as sort of more general mental health units within those hospitals. And we do work quite closely, especially with Ashworth. So we will accept referrals if their patients are ready to sort of step down levels of security. Equally, we will refer up to high secure hospitals if we have patients who need a higher level of security than we can provide them with in order to help with their sort of recovery, really. So so that's generally sort of secure hospitals in general. And then we thought we would just give an overview of what services MPFT have here. So I'll start with Ellesmere House because it's close to my heart. It's where I first started when I qualified as a staff nurse. So Ellesmere is on the St George's site, and it's a 12-bedded, low secure unit for men with a history of learning disabilities. So there's not many services really for people with learning disabilities, inpatient services, I should say, because quite rightly after the sort of Winterbourne View scandal that occurred and the subsequent changes to transforming care agenda, most of the services for people with learning disabilities are sort of moved towards more community-based services, but there is still some need for an inpatient service, and at Ellesmere we provide that with our 12-bedded sort of ward that we have. And we work very closely as an MDT with services in the community. So our sort of discharge pathway would hopefully be towards a more community setting for our patients, really. And we work with people with a really diverse spectrum of needs. So as it says, we work with people with learning disabilities, people with autism, people with mental health problems as well. Okay.
So we've also got the Hatherton Centre, which is a 49-bedded medium secure service. Again, this is for men aged 18 plus, with a history of offending behaviour and mental illness. And we've got 4 wards within the Hatherton Centre. So we've got Newport House, which is an 8-bedded PICU, and we do quite often keep a couple of those beds so that we've got the ability to admit emergency admissions, potentially from prison services, but just to ensure that we can admit. We've also got Ashley House, which is an acute admissions ward, and that's got 13 beds. And then within the same unit, we've also got 2 rehabilitation wards. So we've got a 16-bedded unit called Radford, and we've got a 12-bedded unit called Norton. So there is a pathway within the Hatherton Centre itself. So quite often, but not always, a lot of our patients potentially may start in the acute pathway and they may go to all of the wards, or they may just go to some of the other rehab wards. But also patients are able to be discharged from any of our wards within the Hatherton, depending on sort of what their needs are or where's been identified as appropriate placement for them to go. Within within forensics in general, we work really closely with the forensic community team, which we call FIRST, and we've got a bit more about FIRST later on. The service has got really close links with lots of different sort of external agencies, but we do link a lot with obviously the criminal justice services, in-reach prison teams and liaison services as well. We've got a really wide range of patients with various sort of complex needs that come to the Hatherton Centre. Leading on from that, we've also got our CLE unit. So Clee is over in Shropshire. It's within the Redwood site in Shrewsbury, and again, it's a male service, and this has got 32 beds, and that's across 2 different wards. So we've got, actually, it says you on here.
Yeah,
it's the wrong way round.
There,
But Willow ward is the 20-bedded rehab ward, and Willow's actually got 2 flats as well, which is great because it means that patients can, you know, before they're going back out into the community, have an opportunity to live as independently as they possibly can within the flat. And then we've also got U ward, which is a 12-bedded acute assessment ward. Between those 2 wards, we've got a Sycamore, which is a shared therapy space. It's got a real wide range of different provisions on there, such as a gym, a multi-faith room. We've got a craft room. There's also a sensory room on U ward, and a sensory room over at the Hatherton as well. So that's just a bit of an overview of some of the services we work with. So leading on from that, we have got a first team. So as mentioned, it is the Forensic Intensive Recovery Support Team. So this is a really comprehensive MDT, and a lot of our first team will come and actually work with patients before they're even discharged to make sure that if they're being followed up by the first team on discharge from us, that they're able to build up that rapport before they even go out into the community, which we believe helps to strengthen patients being able to stay out, get the right support. So first, actually do work with men and women over the age of 18 diagnosed with a mental health disorder or a personality disorder, and they've obviously had a stay in inpatient secure services. So they also work really closely with patients that are perhaps out of county, that we would want to repatriate and get them back sort of closer to home and back within their sort of, the West Midlands area. So they do loads of really good work with patients in the community.
Okay, so when we were asked to do this talk, we were sort of told that people on the call might not have much experience of forensic mental health care or the roles that we play sort of within that setting. So I thought we'd just talk about some of the skills that we use as a sort of multidisciplinary team. Obviously, me and Laura are nurses, so this is kind of probably written from quite a nursing perspective, really, I guess. But we are part of a multidisciplinary team on every ward. So, of course, the first thing we probably do, the skills that we use, is in mental health assessment. So it can be formal mental health assessment and decision making as part of the MDT sort of process. But on a day-to-day basis, that's what we're doing. So within the wards, we are assessing people's mental health, we're assessing behaviour, we're seeing what that behaviour is communicating to us, what can we understand and learn from that about the person, and how we can sort of support them down their sort of recovery pathway. And we're feeding that back into the MDT on a weekly basis so that they understand how that person is presenting on a day-to-day basis, really. I suppose one of the big areas for us is around risk assessment. So we use various different tools of risk assessment, and we've just put some of the common ones that we use there. But obviously, there are other things that we might use depending on the person, really. So we look at risk in terms of historical risk. Obviously, a lot of our patients have come to us through the criminal justice system, and they have maybe committed crimes and things that we need to be aware of. And things that we might need to work on with them actually before they can sort of look at their discharge pathway. But we also look at sort of the day-to-day risk, so how someone's presenting, what triggers we might have noticed, what things we've noticed might help them with those things. So risk assessment is kind of dynamic, and it's an everyday, every shift type situation, really. One of the key things for us, though, is this idea of least restrictive practice, which is obviously big part of the Mental Health Act, the Mental Health, what's it called? The not the Mental Health Act. Never mind. The least restrictive
Capacity
practice is a big.
Act.
Yes, thank you. The least restrictive practice is a big thing for us. So in that, what we're talking about is we need to balance this idea of being a therapeutic environment and assisting people in their recovery journey with the notion that we have to provide a level of security depending on which unit they're in, and we have to manage their risk, and we have to manage their sort of risk reduction work as well. So it's quite a fine balancing act, really, and we need to do a lot of reflective practice around that. And obviously we've touched on the fact that our patients are a really complex group. So we've talked about the likelihood that our patients will have experienced levels of trauma in their lives. They will have some kind of chronic mental disorder. They will have had lots of adversity. They will probably have been to prison or another secure unit at least. So when we're doing formulation work as an MDT, we have to take into account all of that complexity in trying to look at solutions that will be sort of person-centred, really. There are a lot of therapeutic interventions that are offered, and those can be either one-to-one or as groups, and they can be led by the psychology team, they can be done by the psychology team, or other members of the MDT, such as the nurses, with supervision. We do a lot of quality improvement work within forensics, so I'm sure Laura will talk more about that later, as she is the quality lead for the Hatton Centre. But a lot of what we do is about evaluating our practice and trying to figure out how we could improve the outcomes for people, really. Most of our patients stay with us for quite a long time, so much longer than people in adult secure, non-secure services. And I suppose because of that, we have a significant need to look after their physical health care. So we give people high dose antipsychotics. We obviously are a secure service, so they're confined. They don't have a lot of opportunity to exercise and go outside. We need to manage a lot of conditions such as metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cardiovascular issues as well. So we've developed a physical healthcare team, and we have physical healthcare leads on each of the wards, and we do a lot of work around health promotion, long-term symptom management and things like that. So, as we've also said as well, we are a specialist area, and we do a lot of work around how we maintain a compassion-focused environment and work in a trauma-informed way while we balance that level of security. So that's one of the quality improvement projects we're sort of looking at the moment. And we're also involved with the Cultures of Care project as well, which is a national project sort of looking at that too. Some of the skills we have are around nurse assessment. So we will go and assess people in prisons and high secure units and other levels of security around the country. So we have to have skills in being able to build a rapport quickly and complete assessments, and know how to meet the needs of the people that we're going to bring into our service. And as Laura's already said, we work collaboratively with internal and external agencies, including things like MAPA and things like that. So nurses who come and work with us will have an individual development plan, and that might look at their own interests and the needs of the service. So we might look at things like nurse prescribing and advanced practice, but we might also look at psychological therapies like HAT and EMDR and things like that. And obviously there's leadership development as well that we do within our service for people, isn't it?
So we wanted to just share a couple of sort of elements of sort of positive practice and maybe areas of innovation that we've sort of been working on, some of them for a shorter period of time and some of them are just sort of more embedded. So one of the things that myself and Corinne over the last 2-3 years now, isn't it, is we've been running sort of like a specialised preceptorship programme that runs alongside the Trust's one, so it doesn't replace the Trust preceptorship programme, but it's really tailored to forensic mental health nurses to help recruit and retain, to make sure that we're offering the best we possibly can. And part of that programme is to make sure that we're sort of tailoring those education sessions to make sure that we're improving care essentially, and making sure that nurses are the best prepared they can possibly be for working within a forensic unit. So it is something we're really proud about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something we're really passionate on. The programme itself, we've actually written an article about it that's been published. We've put a link to it on here. I think it is a clickable link when the slides go out. And it's something that we won a positive practice award for, isn't it? So it's something that we've had really positive feedback about, and we're just continuing to sort of try and invest in that and shape it really now that we're luckily filling vacancies really quickly. So unlikely that we'll have a massive cohort of nurses coming through. So at the moment we're looking at how we can adapt that for sort of 1 or 2 nurses coming in at a time. The other stuff that we're really sort of proud of within the forensic services is our work around sort of sensory integration. So there's an advanced occupational therapist and sensory integration practitioner called Marion, who is amazing and has developed all sorts of specialist care plans for patients. She's been on training to sort of have the best informed input into what our patients needs from a sensory perspective. She works across the directorate, and she works very closely with OTs over at Shrewsbury as well. So both sites have got a sensory room, and that's just continuing to progress really well. We've also just recently launching our virtual reality program, which is something really new to us. We had a launch day for it last Friday, and the program's really impressive. The number of our colleagues that have been working really closely with the VR team, and it's just looking at ways of being able to engage with our patients and offer something really different. And we've got all sorts of different VR available, so it's going to potentially help to support people with transitioning to leave, offering different relaxation, building on virtual tours of wards so that patients can actually see wards where they're going before they even come. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be really beneficial to our patient group. The Trust has got a robust co-production and experience strategy, and that there's lots of work around co-production going on at the moment, so that's really exciting as well. And since 2020, we've also got a lead nurse for inequalities, Shingi, and he's co-produced sort of an action plan and developed groups such as We Are All Equal, which is really great in engaging patients on the wards, but also working with people with lived experience to sort of tackle all things inequalities. And the other thing that we're really proud of is the development of a carer lead to sort of implement carer strategies, looking at triangle of care, and there's lots of good work coming with that as well. So the directorate, I think Corinne's touched on this, but we're supporting the training of non-medical approved clinicians, of which we've got one on Ellesmere.
Yeah.
So that's really, really good. And also our Forensic Recovery College. So there's been lots of work done around that. We've got lived experience facilitators, we've got a recovery college coordinator. So lots more work to come with that as well. And we're also developing a co-produced trauma-informed care strategy.
A lot when we list it out like that, isn't it? So we also wanted to obviously talk a little bit about Reach Out. So as MPFT, we are part of a provider collaborative, which is called Reach Out. It's the West Midlands Provider Collaborative for Adult Secure Services, and our partners are BSMHFT, St Andrews, and Coventry and Warwickshire. Being part of the provider collaborative has opened up lots of opportunities. So obviously a lot of partnership working, trying to provide the best care, the closest to home that we can, and sort of using resources in the most beneficial way for our patients in the West Midlands, and sharing practice as well. So we share a lot of quality improvement work between partners, don't we? And a lot of sort of innovations can be spread that way as well. So yeah, that's sort of the Reach Out side of things really. So that's kind of the last bit about the actual services, I guess, really. So I think me and Laura, we just wanted to say a little bit about why we've chosen to work in forensic services, because I think it's an area, if you don't really know about it, you perhaps wouldn't imagine that you would want to come and work here. So I don't know if I do you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
So I came to be a registered nurse a little bit later on than Laura. So I did my training and qualified when I was 37. So I'd had a career prior to coming in as a registered mental health nurse. I was a welfare rights advisor and a service manager before I came in. And I started as a staff nurse on Ellesmere. But before that, when I did my training, I definitely did not think I was going to work in forensic services. So I probably thought I would work in CAMS or, I don't know, another community-based team, I guess. But I did my last placement on Norton in the Hatherton Centre, and I loved it. I absolutely loved the complexity of the patients and the way that the MDT worked. And there were so many things that I sort of thought I didn't know and I could learn. And so I've stayed in forensic services since then. And I've been obviously a staff nurse and deputy ward manager on a couple of the sort of Hatherton wards, and then progressing through to a clinical lead sort of quality role. And now I work as matron for low secure services. So I look after Clee at Redwoods and Ellesmere House at St George's. So the things that I'm really passionate about in forensics is, well, firstly, it's our patient group. So I think we work with one of the probably the most marginalised patient groups that you will probably find. It's a diverse patient group, by no misunderstanding, lots of different backgrounds and things, but on the whole, people will have experienced a lot of really difficult experiences, and prison is probably one of those. It's right up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The traumatizing experience in itself. And I'm really interested in how we do that. So how we work non-judgmentally in a person-centered way with people who do display challenging behaviours and who may have done things that we feel sort of on the whole we would be morally objecting to, but we need to provide care and we need to provide it in a sort of person-centered way, really. So my interests are around how we support staff to do that, and how we can help them to avoid things like moral injury, compassion fatigue, those kinds of things which can impact on quality of care delivery. So that's what I'm sort of really keen on championing. That's what my kind of research is focused on. And when I think about quality improvement and what I do with the ward teams that I look after, those are the things that I kind of want to address, really. That's what keeps me sort of wanting to get up every morning and come into work. So yeah.
I think we've probably got a lot of what you've just said is probably very similar to myself, really. But yeah, so I qualified in 2009. I didn't come straight into forensics, but I did move into forensics from 2013, and I've never left since. I've worked across quite a few of the wards and across 2 of the different services. So I've been with the forensic directorate as a staff nurse, as a deputy manager, ward manager, and in my most recent role, which is quality lead, and that covers the Hatherton Centre. So the 4 wards over in our medium secure unit. And I mean, similar to what Corinne has mentioned, the population group is what I really enjoy working with our patients. I moved into a quality role and really enjoying that. Look at a lot of sort of standards of care and sort of looking at how we are able to meet those standards of care. Working with both patients and staff and working more clinically has been really nice for me. Some of my sort of main areas of passion are around least restricted practice. So I've seen since 2013 loads of changes and improvements in the way that we do things, and some of them are more subtle, but some of them are quite big, such as mobile phone introduction on some of the wards. But really the biggest change for me is just sort of people getting more on board with change and not having an attitude of it's always been this way, which can be quite difficult for people, especially in secure care, to sort of move with sort of more advanced sort of viewpoints, really. Other things that I really enjoy are working with students and sort of looking at the recruitment side of things, which links into our preceptorship programme. And just patient empowerment, quality improvement, obviously, whether that's big or small. So we've done some really big quality improvement projects, but they don't all have to be big to make a difference. We're currently working on 2 of the wards, Ellesmere and Radford, on a national QI programme, which is all around improving patients' experience under the Mental Health Act for different populations. So that's really exciting. We're sort of nearly through that now and hoping to roll that out and share that with other services as well. So yeah, I think that brings us to an end, but obviously we're happy to answer any questions. We've got some further reading and some resources here that might be of interest to people. As I said, we put this together for people that perhaps didn't know much about forensics at all. So I think they're all sort of clickable links, aren't they, that we can get shared.
Yeah. So thank you. That's the end of our presentation. I don't know if people want to ask us anything.
Yeah, so are there any questions? There's one coming from Sharon King, just asking if forensic secure services take referrals from community drugs teams. So Sharon, I don't know if you just seen me message back to you. I'll happily talk to you about that. It'd be unusual to take a referral for admission into the secure services. Has anybody got any questions? The chat will be open for some time, because I know posing questions in front of 50 other people might be a bit daunting. So the chat will be open for some time, so people can pop questions onto there if we want to, and then we'll we'll keep responding to those as we come through. I suppose that those interests, Laura, are in. So that whole thing around resilience, you talk about sort of like, you know, the moral injury. How do we support staff who are working sort of like within forensic services with individuals who you wouldn't normally be working with, and like you say, individuals who may have committed offences which could be, I suppose, you know, considered very difficult to work with. So what do you do about supporting staff?
There's a lot of things that we do. So we have a very big focus on supervision. So that's individuals, managerial and clinical supervision, obviously, but as ward teams, we offer a lot of reflective practice groups and workers groups to really try and understand the people that we're looking after and the impact that it might be having within the team. We also, so I run a lot of resilience-based clinical supervision groups, especially for sort of more newer qualified staff, and that's all around trying to sort of develop a compassion-focused attitude to self and decision making and things, and sort of understanding that internal critic. Obviously, we've got access to things like occupational health and the Soothe resources as well, and we'll make appropriate referrals where individuals are sort of really kind of in need of some additional services. But I think a lot of it is around the staff ability to reflect, and we also offer obviously like skills and training around certain situations, especially things like where we have to work with people with a particularly tricky behaviour or whatever. We'll do that as well.
We do a lot of sort of post-incident support for people, patients and staff, but just recognising there's different types of support needed at different points in time, isn't there? So I think that's something we probably do quite well. We have regular workers meetings about particular cases, just trying to help staff unpick, you know, complexities really and how challenging it can be.
I think that it's something that we certainly acknowledge, isn't it? That it's really, we ask a tricky thing of people. So we ask people to work non-judgmentally and person-centeredly and to be compassionate, but they may be experiencing really adverse conditions in their working day. So they'll be experiencing perhaps difficult behaviours, challenges because they can't leave a particularly secure area for a period of time, things like that. So it's something that we acknowledge, and we try to address through those things we've already said. But I think acknowledging it is probably the biggest step first, really.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. We've had a question from Tim Taylor saying you're happy to share the slides.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, okay. And then just other comments about very interesting and thank you. So I suppose unless there's any other questions, so then we'll sort of call it a day. But before we do, Kate, where are you? Kate Matthews and Slido.
Hello.
Hello. Talk to us about Slido, Kate.
Just after the session ends, I'll drop a couple of questions in the chat using Slido, just for feedback. So feel free to answer in your own time.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So yeah, if you would answer those, and we're looking for ideas. We've got some ideas about what we want to share next. So we're going to do this on a monthly basis. So, but if there's anything in particular which people are thinking, I want to know more about this service, or I want to know more about moral injury. Michael Fowle has just put moral injury or moral distress, question mark. So, Corinne, moral injury, moral distress, it's your bag.
I was just typing back to him to say, well, I'm talking about moral injury. That's kind of my research area at the moment. But I'm more than happy to have a separate conversation about moral injury and moral distress. My view is it's a bit of a continuum, really. So we might experience moral distress over various different things that we encounter, and there is a theory that combined will amount to moral injury with a particular distress response that's associated with moral injury. But there's lots of different thoughts around that, really. It's a sort of emerging and developing paradigm, I think.
Yeah, and what could cause moral injury or moral distress, Corinne?
there's sort of lots of things, isn't there? So, for example, if you are working, well, for us in forensics, we have to work in a secure way. So sometimes we have to do things that we might not feel are therapeutic. So we might need to use things like physical intervention or seclusion or rapid trank and things like that. If we take people to court as nurses, we might have to apply handcuffs and do a handcuffed escort. That might not be something that we think is particularly therapeutic. It might be around knowing that a person's index offence, so the offence that they've committed, but then knowing that we have to respond to them in a caring and compassionate way. So there's lots of things that can sort of cause that kind of moral dichotomy, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. Michael, I don't know if you want to contact Corinne outside of this, so I'm sure she'd be more than happy to chat to you about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts, comments, or just general questions? No? Okay, right. Folks, I think that's been really useful. We had, I think it was 63 people at one point. So with people coming and going and everything, so I think that's useful. If you do think of any ideas about other subject matter or services that you'd like to know about, please let us know. So, and we'll take it from there. Thank you very much, Corinne, Laura. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.